That Tuesday, I woke up and the house felt dead. No clatter, no coffee, just a silence that pressed on my chest. Mom, Denise, Dad, Robert, Tyler, nothing. In the kitchen, one crooked yellow magnet and a note. We left. You're 18. Figure it out. Good luck. My hands shook. I called. Every number disconnected. That word sliced. I whispered, "You left me like trash?" The walls were naked, closets gutted, my life scraped clean. The hurt wasn't loud, it was surgical. It told me, you don't matter. Be honest, if you were me, broke, abandoned before breakfast, do you beg, break, or switch to survival mode? Tell me in the comments. If this makes you furious, hit like. Subscribe, because what came next was uglier, and yes, somehow stronger. Happy birthday, adulthood, they said without saying it. Now drown or learn to breathe. I wish I could tell you I cried pretty, and then it got better. It didn't. That first week was a horror movie filmed in daylight. The house was empty, my bank app coughed up 3 digits, and the landlord's voicemail was a countdown clock. 10 days to vacate. 10 days to erase a childhood. I packed by sound, the scrape of hangers, the thud of a box, my heartbeat in my ears. I kept the fridge note. Yeah, the one with the yellow magnet. We left. You're 18. Figure it out. Good luck. I slipped it into my backpack like a wound I refuse to let heal because pain at least proves you're still here. I called everyone I knew. I hated every ring. Hey, weird question. Can I crash on your couch? Most people loved me until I needed something. You know that kind of love, conditional. Amy said yes. 1 couch, 2 weeks, no promises. I arrived with a duffel, a box of books, and the kind of shame that climbs your throat and sits there like a stone. First night on her couch, the ceiling fan made a clicking noise. Click, click, click. Every click sounded like, "You're a burden." I whispered back, "Not for long." Day 2, I sold my bike. Day 3, my game console. Day 4, bracelets from birthdays that don't matter now. Cash is oxygen when you're drowning. I printed 50 resumes at a library that smelled like old paper and broken hopes. I hit every place with a help wanted sign. Groceries, gas stations, cafes where the coffee costs more than my lunch budget. Most managers smiled like they were apologizing for my existence. We'll keep your application on file. Translation, trash can. You ever smile so hard your face hurts just so a stranger won't be scared of your desperation? 2 weeks in, a tiny clothing shop said yes. Minimum wage, 12-hour shifts. No real breaks. I grabbed that job like a rope in a flood. First Friday, I counted my pay with trembling fingers. Less than 100 to take home that day. It felt like treasure. Not because it was a lot, but because it was mine. Mine after a week of swollen feet, fake smiles, and being told by a stranger, "Smile more, sweetheart." I wanted to say, my family vanished and my bones ache like rent is past due. But I just smiled and folded another shirt. Routine set in like scar tissue. Up before sunrise, bus to work, doze against windows smeared with other people's lives, shift till 6, night classes because quitting school felt like letting them win. Homework on buses, sleep 4 hours if I was lucky. Weekends I carried trays at weddings so rich people could toast forever while I tried not to spill champagne on their rented fairy tales. One groom told me, "Careful, honey, this bottle costs more than your month." He laughed. I said, "Congrats," and tipped the flute like it was a middle finger I couldn't afford. 3 months later, I had just enough to rent a room in a house with 4 strangers and a water heater that played roulette. The walls were thin. Someone always cooked eggs at 2 a.m. The mattress squeaked whenever I breathed. Still, I lay there the first night and smiled at the ceiling. Because no one could evict me emotionally. No one could rescind my right to exist. It was small. It was loud. It was mine. Congrats, I whispered to myself. You survived the blast. But survival has a cost. It eats pieces of you. I learned to budget fear, ration tears, and schedule panic between shifts. Anxiety wore my skin like a jacket. I'd stand in the stockroom, lightheaded, whispering, "You're okay, you're okay," while folding shirts that cost more than my weekly groceries. Sometimes I'd take the note out and read it like scripture from a cruel God. Figure it out. Fine, I'll figure it out. But don't you dare ask me to call it love. I stole minutes to study. Free videos on marketing, digital ads, the basics of selling with nothing but words and timing. I took notes on the bus with a pen that didn't always work and a brain that often wanted to shut down. When the doubt got loud, I'd ask you the question I asked myself. If they bet on your failure, do you become the odds or the miracle? If you're rooting for the miracle, drop a like. That tiny click is noise against the silence they left me in. Comment what you do with 10 days, $300, and a note that says, good luck. Beg, break, or build. And then, little by little, relief dripped in. A shift lead noticed how I calmed down angry customers. He said, "You're good at this." Compliments can feel dangerous when you've been starved, like you don't remember how to swallow. I tried. I let the words anchor me. I kept showing up, kept moving, kept choosing the next step over the next spiral. Survival became a muscle. It hurt to build, but it held. And if you're still here watching, know this. The worst thing they did wasn't the note. It was making me believe for a minute that I was disposable. I'm not, and neither are you. When the doubt got loud, I asked myself, become the odds or the miracle? If you're rooting for the miracle, like, share, and tell me, beg, break, or build. Progress doesn't arrive like a parade. It shows up like a bus that's always 5 minutes late and you have to sprint anyway. I kept sprinting. The store became my lab. I watched people. Why they touched a shirt, why they left it, what words made them stay. I asked for more responsibility, not because I wasn't tired, but because tired didn't pay rent faster. They made me key holder. It came with a raise so small it looked like a typo, but the title meant trust. And after being thrown away, trust is currency. With the extra dollars, I bought a used laptop that needed a pep talk to boot. I fed it free courses, webinars at weird hours, PDFs with more highlight than text. I learned the bones of digital marketing. Offers, timing, headlines, the invisible math behind why we say yes. On lunch breaks, I'd eat noodles out of a thermos and A/B test subject lines in my head. On the bus, I'd rewrite ads I saw on billboards. You could say that better, I'd mutter, and passengers would look away like ambition was contagious. A year in, customers knew my name. Karen from Returns stopped calling me sweetheart. She used my name. That felt like a promotion. My manager noticed too. You handle the toughest people without losing the sale, he said. How? I shrugged. I treat their anger like weather. I don't argue with rain. I hand them an umbrella. He laughed and gave me more floor time, which meant more chances to test instincts I didn't have a word for yet. The second year cracked open. A friend sent me a posting. A tech company downtown needed a marketing assistant. Me? I had retail on my resume and a hunger I couldn't print. I applied anyway. When they called, I took the interview on my 30-minute break, standing behind the dumpster where the Wi-Fi leaked out of the cafe next door. I told them the truth. I didn't have agency experience, but I turned angry walk-ins into repeat customers, and I could learn faster than most people could complain. They said, "Can you start Monday?" I looked at my schedule. I looked at my life. Yes. That first paycheck felt like stepping out of a cramped hallway into a room with windows. I moved into a tiny studio with sunlight that made even my dishes look hopeful. I kept school at night because quitting would have felt like letting the note win. I lived like a pendulum. Work, class, study, sleep, repeat. The swing got faster, the stakes got higher, and still, I found breath. At the new job, I discovered metrics. Click-through rates, conversion funnels, heat maps that looked like weather reports for Desire. I learned to read them like x-rays. Here's where the copy breaks trust. Here's where the button lies. I wrote emails that sounded like people, not robots. They worked. We hit numbers no one expected from the new kid with retail shoes. Someone said, "You have intuition." I said, "No, I have rent due." Secret, sometimes survival sharpens you into something precise. Then came the professor, Andre. the one who saw me show up to night classes in my work polo and asked why I never missed a deadline. I said, because I can't afford to. He smiled like he knew. He sent my resume to a bigger company for a paid internship. I almost didn't apply. Imposter syndrome is loud when you grew up being told, figure it out without a map. But I pressed send. Interview day, I wore the one blazer I owned and shoes that still smelled like sales floor. The panel asked, what makes you different? I said, I have tested empathy in the wild. I can translate panic into strategy. They stared, then they nodded. 6 months of internship felt like sprinting uphill carrying groceries. Early in, late out. I asked every question that didn't get me fired. I learned how to pitch, how to lose, how to recover within the same breath. I kept a sticky note on my monitor. Outlearn your doubt. It worked. At the end, they offered me a full-time role. The salary was 3 times my first job. I read the numbers twice. My hands shook like they did behind the retail counter that first Friday. But this time, the tremor sounded like possibility. I graduated at 23, the only one in my row who had worked full-time the entire program. No family in the stands, no balloons. I took a photo outside with my diploma, and the city reflected in a puddle at my feet. I texted it to myself. I said, we did that. Promotions followed in careful steps. I learned to manage budgets that once could have bought my entire apartment building's groceries. I hired interns and taught them to write to humans, not metrics. The paycheck rose, the apartment got bigger, and for the first time, my closet looked like choices, not donations. I made friends who felt like siblings you choose, not a script you inherit. I met a woman whose kindness didn't ask me to shrink. We built quiet rituals. Plants that lived, dinners we cooked badly then got right, Sunday mornings that smelled like cinnamon and not panic. I still kept the note tucked in a notebook. Not as a shrine, as proof. Proof that the story wasn't over when they left. And if you're still watching, if any part of this sounds like your fight, comment proof. Share this with the version of you who thinks it's too late. It isn't. I'm evidence, and you can be too. If this chapter gives you oxygen, tap like, drop a comment with one word, proof, and pass it on. 10 years after the note, an unknown number lit up my phone. I almost let it die. Something in me answered. A familiar voice slid through the speaker like it had a right to be there. Hey, it's Mom. Casual, like a decade hadn't rusted between us. My mouth went dry. How did you get this number? Your aunt, she said, like borrowing my life was a library book. She started talking. Updates like postcards from a vacation I wasn't invited to. New city. Dad's job, my brother's graduation. Not a single word about the morning they broke the sound barrier with silence. Not one about the note. When she finally asked how I was, I said, fine, very fine without your help. The quiet on the line told a truth. That sentence hurt more than any scream. She pitched a reunion. We'll be in your city in 2 weeks. Lunch? I could have said no. I could have hung up. Instead, I said yes. Not for them. For me. Closure is a door you build yourself. My girlfriend asked if I wanted company. I said yes. That Saturday, I arrived early and memorized exits like a firefighter. They walked in older, like time had finally charged them interest. Mom went for a hug. I let it land like weather. Dad shook my hand and said, you look good. You've grown up. I said, that's what abandonment does. We ordered. Small talk misfired. They asked about my job, my neighborhood. I kept it light. I wasn't auditioning for the role of their success story. Then Dad started the narrative. It was hard for us too. We had to move for work. We thought you'd be okay. You were always independent. That word, independent, hit like a slap. Independence isn't leaving a kid with $300 and a goodbye note. I put my hand up. I'm not finished, I said before I'd even begun. I was hungry. I slept on a friend's couch. I worked 3 jobs. I cried alone more nights than I can count. Everything I have isn't thanks to you, it's despite you. People at nearby tables got very interested in their forks. Mom started to cry. I did not hand her a tissue. I reached into my bag and unfolded the paper I'd carried for a decade. I laid it on the table. Do you remember this? The yellowed edge, the handwriting I could recognize in the dark. Mom picked it up like it was radioactive. I regret it every day, she whispered. Dad stared at the tablecloth like it might save him. He said, "We wanted to fix it." I nodded. Good. Start by naming it. You didn't push me to grow. You abandoned me. The words sat there between the salt and the water glasses, heavy and true. My brother looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. I asked him if he knew they were going to leave me. He said quietly, "I found out in the car. I asked about you. They said you'd stay because you were older." I felt heat rise, but not at him. He had been a kid holding a story he didn't write. I told him, "You owed me nothing then. You owe me honesty now." He nodded. I took a breath that felt like stepping onto a stage I didn't ask for. "I forgive you," I said, and watched their shoulders sag. "Not because you deserve it, because I deserve peace." Their relief tried to rush in like a tide, so I put up a wall. Forgiving isn't forgetting. It isn't reunion cosplay. It means I won't let rage run my life. It does not mean you get front row seats again. I laid out boundaries like lines on a court. Slow contact, no surprise visits, no borrowing, no rewriting history, therapy if they wanted any real relationship. Mom nodded too fast. Dad said, "We can do that." I said, "Time will tell." Lunch ended without hugs big enough to edit the past. We paid. We walked out under a sky that refused to be dramatic for us. In the months after, messages arrived like timid birds. I replied when I had the bandwidth. Polite, not warm. We found a rhythm that didn't grind me down. Some days I answered, some days I didn't. Healing isn't a straight road. It's a neighborhood with dead ends and cul-de-sacs. What did I learn? That family is a verb, not blood. Presence, not promises. Practice. That abandonment is a theft, but it doesn't get to keep everything. I built a life that can't be repossessed by people who forfeited the keys. I can hold two truths at once. They were wrong, and I won't let that wrong define the rest of my pages. If you've been left, hear me. Your worth is not a group project. Comment boundaries if you're drawing your lines. Share this if someone you love needs permission to protect their peace. Like this if you believe forgiveness can be strength and distance at the same time. And for the record, the most shocking line of the entire story wasn't on the note, it was this. "We thought you'd be okay." Maybe I am, but I got okay in spite of them. That difference matters. It's the whole point. I do not owe my healing to the hands that caused the wound. I owe it to the person who picked me up off that couch, sold the bike, carried the trays, took the bus, learned the craft, and chose again and again not to drown. That person was me, and I'm not disposable. If this ending gave you language for your own boundaries, like comment boundaries and share it forward. Here's where I land after all the noise dies down. I didn't win some tidy fairy tale ending. I built a livable truth. I learned that peace isn't a place you arrive, it's a muscle you train. Some mornings it shakes, some days it holds. Forgiveness helped me stop bleeding, but boundaries kept me from reopening the wound. And yeah, there are moments I still hear that refrigerator note in my head like a bad jingle. You're 18, figure it out. When that echo shows up, I remind myself, I did figure it out. I made a map where there wasn't one. Do I miss what we should have had? Of course. Grief is the rent love charges when the house is empty. But I don't owe my future to the people who walked out of my past. I can hold two truths. I'm okay now, and what they did was not okay. I can answer the phone sometimes and also protect the version of me who curled up on a borrowed couch and counted crumpled dollars like they were prayers. That kid deserves my loyalty more than anyone else. Here's the question I keep tossing back to you and to myself at 2 a.m. When the old ache taps on the glass, am I in the wrong? Was I wrong to meet them, to forgive them, and still keep my distance? Was I wrong to insist on therapy, on slow trust, on no as a complete sentence? Or is it finally right to choose a life where my nervous system gets a vote? Tell me honestly, if you were me, what would you do? What I've learned? Family is behavior, not biology. Love without accountability is just convenience in costume. Survival taught me discipline. Healing taught me gentleness. And the biggest flex isn't revenge, it's regulation. It's being able to sit across from the people who broke you and feel your feet on the floor, your breath in your chest, and your power in your no. If this gave you a little oxygen, if it named something you've been carrying, drop a comment and tell me your take. Hit like so the algorithm knows this kind of honesty matters. Share it with someone who needs proof they're not crazy for setting boundaries. And if you want more stories that hold space for messy, complicated healing, subscribe. Not for me, for the you who needed to hear, you're not disposable, because you're not. Neither am I, and that's the point I'm taking with me.